Sure. More generally, are you and the team kind of where you hoped or expected to be at this point of pre-season in terms of mileage, data gathered, all the things that you've been able to look at and go through so far?
I don't know. I think we're probably... of course, we hope that we could come and have... When you come to the test, you always want to get a lot of mileage. Like today I did 85 laps in the morning, which is amazing. And that's really down to all the people at the factory who've done such a great job to make sure the car so far is really reliable. So, last year we had a worse start to testing. So this is actually, considering it's a completely new band of rules, it's better than we've experienced in the past. So I'm really hopeful that continues.
Fred, here at the Barcelona shakedown, how would you sum it up from Ferrari's side so far?
It was an interesting first day with slick for us, that we had day one with in wet condition, and today was a very good session with something like 180 laps on the board, and this is important for the team, for the reliability, to accumulate mileage, to learn about the car. It's a huge challenge for everybody, and more mileage you are doing, more you are learning, and this is good. But still a lot of to do. It's still a long way before Melbourne and the season, but I think it was, as a first step today, was a very good one.
Just how big a project has this been for the team, and how satisfying is it to arrive here? And as you say, you're putting miles on the board straight away.
Yeah, for sure that it's an important milestone to be able to run, to put mileage and so, but at the end of the day, we'll have to keep in mind that performance at one stage will become crucial. But the target was to be able to accumulate mileage, and we did it. That now I think we'll have all the night to think about what we did today and how to improve for tomorrow, and the learning process will be long, that we have still tomorrow and the 2 sessions in Bahrain, that I think that everybody on the grid is with the same mindset to discover about almost everything on the car, and the feeling is good.
You touched on the learning there. Would you say that Ferrari are pretty much where they hope to be or expected to be in terms of the mileage collected and the gather dated so far?
Lap, I think we can't do more. That at one stage you have to stop to refuel. That it would have been difficult to do more, and that we have to stay focused on this, to collect data, and to have time over the night to think about this, and to try to do a step forward tomorrow and to continue in the same direction.
So talking of that checklist, what more do you want to get out of this shakedown before we move on to Bahrain for the official pre-season test, Fred?
You have tons of topics to scan on the car, that from aero to mechanical to engine, energy deployment is a big topic for everybody. It means that you have to scan every single parameter, and it's taking time, and the best way to do it is to stay on track. It means that it's where we are pleased with the session today, is that we stick to the program, and it's a good first one.
What if I told you that what happened to Hamilton on the second day of testing in Barcelona not only surprised Ferrari, but also unleashed an internal technical crisis that no one expected? Ferrari began 2026 not only with high expectations, but with the accumulated pressure of a previous debacle. The 2025 season had been an open wound for the Scuderia, one that not only affected its historical prestige, but undermined internal confidence in the entire technical project. It was a campaign without wins, without podiums for Hamilton, and with an evolution of the car that not only did not solve the structural problems, but also exposed the deep fissures between the Maranello simulator and the reality of the asphalt. An entire year without success for a team like Ferrari is not a statistic. It is a humiliation. Lewis Hamilton, for his part, arrived in 2025 as the most high-profile signing in more than a decade. The 7-time world champion had left Mercedes with a clear intention: to build a legacy at Ferrari that would match Schumacher's. But that plan encountered unexpected walls. The car was unstable, the strategies were erratic, and the internal environment reflected more uncertainty than conviction. There was no clear technical leadership. Charles Leclerc was the reference, yes, but after so many years without titles, even his influence was beginning to be questioned within the wall. Vasseur, who was already leading the team, was forced to break Ferrari's internal logic. The work model had been too focused on Leclerc, and that generated a structure that prioritized the comfort of the monegasque driver over the flexibility of adaptation for new talents like Hamilton. It was evident that that design, that way of operating, was not going to work with someone of the British's caliber. It was not about customizing the car, but about restructuring the technical system so that it could evolve at the pace of the best. Vasseur understood that they needed a philosophical change, not just a mechanical one. Thus was born the SF26, a car that represents much more than a simple new version. Internally, the car was conceived as Project 678, a nomenclature that reveals its experimental nature. Ferrari changed fundamental concepts. They abandoned the failed front pull rod suspension, completely redesigned the power unit to adapt it to the new hybrid regulations that triple the delivery of the MGUK, and implemented an active aerodynamic system that borders on the limits of the regulations. But just as important as the technical part was the symbolic dimension. The SF26 had to be the car that Hamilton felt comfortable with, but without destroying Leclerc's technical legacy. A very fine line of balance. Ferrari could not afford a war of egos or an internal struggle for control of development. And that's where the context becomes fascinating. Because for the car to work, Ferrari needed Hamilton and Leclerc to work together, but they knew that, inevitably, one of the two was going to become the new axis of the project. And although the theory said that this process would take months of joint work, the second day of testing in Barcelona showed that this transition could be much faster. In just a few hours, Hamilton was going to do something that would change the entire perception about the 2026 project. What seemed like another pre-season to collect data and adjust parameters would become a strong signal for Vasseur and all of Maranello. A sign that said, this car, for the first time in years, could be in the right hands to build something big. But that possibility came with a change that few were prepared to accept. The day dawned with overcast skies over the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. It was January 27, 2026, and although the tests were private and without direct official coverage, what happened that day began to quickly filter through the corridors of the paddock. What many thought would be a wasted session due to the threat of rain, turned into one of the most significant days for Ferrari in years. From early on, several teams chose not to go out to shoot. The conditions offered no scope for testing real pace, and with a limited number of test days in the season, saving wet mileage seemed a logical decision. Mercedes, McLaren, Alpine, even Audi and Haas decided not to participate in the day. Only two teams took the risk, Red Bull and Ferrari. But for Frédéric Vasseur, there was no alternative. The team needed miles, needed data, and above all, needed answers. Charles Leclerc opened the day, taking to the track with asphalt still dry. His program was technical, not competitive. It was about validating systems, testing hybrid modes under the new 2026 parameters, and beginning to experiment with the 3 active aerodynamic modes, including the new setting for wet track conditions. Leclerc was meticulous as always. His precise style helped the team prove that the foundation of SF26 was solid. During his shift, he completed more than 60 laps, but at 10:30 in the morning, the rain came. The track changed radically. What came next was the unexpected. After the midday break, the session was completely at the disposal of Lewis Hamilton. The team had planned this test block so that the Briton would have real time on the track in adverse conditions, which in theory would only serve to gather sensations. But as the laps progressed, something different began to be perceived. It wasn't a single magical lap or a burst of speed on the stopwatch. It was an accumulation of small signs. Hamilton not only adapted to the wet track, but began to extract sensations from the car that surprised his own engineers. His management of the hybrid torque delivery, his fine adjustment of the differential in mid-corner, his management of the front wing in partial active mode, all these decisions were reflected in the telemetry as if he had been working with the car for months. But he hadn't. It was his first real test on his first long day under extreme conditions, with a new car and a team still in the process of getting to know him. Frédéric Vasseur, who was observing from the wall, went from observation to technical concern. The data showed something they did not expect so soon. The correlation between the simulator and the track became almost perfect when Hamilton was driving. The lines, the braking points, the regenerative energy curves, everything was aligned with the virtual models that until now only worked under ideal conditions. It was as if, suddenly, everything Ferrari had tried to understand in 2025 finally took shape. The engineers began to communicate with each other in a different tone. There was now talk not only of performance, but of discovery. How Hamilton, with his years of experience in highly methodological environments like Mercedes, was unlocking aspects of the car that had not even been fully explored with Leclerc. It was not a question of direct comparison between drivers, but of styles. Hamilton was exploring the car from another perspective, and that generated new questions, new areas of development that the team had not mapped. Vasseur, according to later leaked reports, called an informal technical meeting at the end of the session. Not to praise but to review. To understand what Hamilton had done, why it had worked, and how that could be integrated into the SF26 roadmap. It was not about making adjustments to a driver's taste, but rather recognizing that the car seemed to respond to a type of driving that until now had not been prioritized within the team. Internally, that day generated more than just enthusiasm. It generated a kind of quiet tension. Because if Hamilton had achieved that in extreme conditions, what could he do in the dry, in qualifying, in the race? And what place was there then for Leclerc, whose more traditional style was already being compared with the new approach that the Briton imposed since his first serious contact? The most striking thing is that Hamilton, despite describing the day as miserable in terms of weather conditions, made no complaints about the car. On the contrary, his feedback was methodical, constructive, almost clinical. It was evident that he had not gone out to impress with times. I had come out to understand. And he had done it better than anyone. Vasseur's reaction was measured but significant. He did not make public statements highlighting one over the other, but he did modify the post-test analysis protocols. Simulator sessions began to be compared with track sessions based on Hamilton's style, and not exclusively with Leclerc's signature. Even in the area of aerodynamics, there is talk of small adjustments in the wind tunnel based on the flow maps indirectly suggested by the Briton's feedback. But Ferrari, for the first time in a long time, enters the championship not with the weight of expectation, but with the traction of clear technical evidence. The SF26 is not designed to win from day one. It is built to evolve quickly, adapt well, and stay within the optimal range of development for longer. Their new active aerodynamic architecture, if fully approved by the FIA, could give them a significant advantage in mixed conditions and variable qualifying. And in a season with 24 races, that is no small thing. In addition, the calendar itself works in its favor. The start in Melbourne, followed by demanding tracks such as China, Japan, and Bahrain, will allow the versatility of the SF26 to be tested in very different technical scenarios. If the car responds solidly in these first rounds, Ferrari could regain something it has lost for years: control of its narrative. Go from the eternal promise to the concrete threat. But there is something deeper underlying all this: cultural transformation. 2026 may be the year Ferrari finally leaves behind the habits that condemned it. The strategic errors, the emotional dependence of certain pilots, the disconnection between technical departments. If what we saw in Barcelona is consolidated, we are facing a team that has changed its DNA. One that prioritizes efficiency over spectacularity, who listens to telemetry before tradition. And he has finally understood that in modern Formula One, championships are not won with history, they are won with execution. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.